Just the call.
All right, you should be live.
Awesome. All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the November 3rd meeting of the Mountain Community Capital Fund Operating Committee. We're going to go ahead and kick off today's meeting with a roll call. As a quick note to anybody watching or that watches this later, all the meeting materials are posted on the Mountain Community Capital Fund site on the City of Asheville. And so that's where you can go to see the agenda, various meeting materials, including minutes and other things. That said, we're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to do our roll call, and so I'm going to go down the list. When I call your name, please state that you're here, the organization you work for, and whether or not you're a voting member. So we'll go ahead and start at the top with Carl.
Good morning. I'm Carl Alguire, and the Asheville appointee and vice chair. I am a voting member.
Dee Williams.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dorothea Williams. I'm the president and CEO of D. Williams and Company, Inc. And I am now a county appointee, and I do have voting authority. Thank you.
Frank.
Good morning. My name is Frank McGowan. I'm interim assistant director with the City of Asheville CED department, and I am a voting member.
John.
Hey, it's John Appleby, appointed by the City of Asheville, and I'm a voting member.
Karen.
This is Karen Amansky. I'm with Self Help, and I'm a non-voting member.
Lydia.
Good morning, Lydia Turgeon with Carolina Small Business Development Fund, and I am a non-voting member.
Nikki.
Good morning, Nikki Reed. I am with the City of Asheville. I'm a voting member. And Tim, if you wouldn't mind, at the end of roll call, I have some new staff to introduce. So if you can pitch it back to me at end of roll call, I'll do that. Thanks.
Rachel.
Hi, I'm Rachel Taylor, Economic Development Division Manager, and nice to meet you all.
Tara.
Hi, I'm Tara Brown with Self Help Credit Union, a non-voting member.
Yaslin.
Good morning, Yaslin Gonzalez. I'm with Mountain BizWorks, and I'm a non-voting member.
All right. Thana.
Thana Alley, City of Asheville staff, non-voting.
All right, Nikki, back to you for additional introductions.
Great, thank you so much. So I want to give an opportunity for us to welcome Aaron Harris. This is Aaron's first week with the City of Asheville as our new business inclusion manager. We are really happy to have Aaron. So if I can put you on the spot, Aaron, would you like to say hello and just share a little bit about your background as it relates to this work?
Of course, and thank you. As she stated, my name is Aaron Harris. I'm recently onboarding as the Business Inclusion Manager with the City of Asheville. Prior to being with the City of Asheville, I was actually with Norfolk Redevelopment and Housing Authority as the Economic Opportunities Manager, where I oversaw programs such as SWAM, which is our Small Women-Owned and Minority Business Program, Section 3, which was a program or a state initiative to reach out to low income to small businesses, as well as workforce development. Prior to being with Norfolk Redevelopment, I was with the City of Rocky Mount, where I oversaw the MWBE program, which was the first program that the City of Rocky Mount implemented, where we designed the program and built it to try to keep the dollars local and to build the local economy as much as possible. That's just a brief introduction. I look forward to meeting you all in person or by way of more meetings in the future. Thank you.
Welcome. All right, Nikki, any additional notes or?
That's it. Thank you so much, Aaron. I do want to just acknowledge that Rachel Taylor has joined us, and also that sitting in with Thana is Megan Greer, who's another new staffer in Community and Economic Development, learning how to handle the back end of this meeting in its public broadcast on YouTube. So you're seeing a little more city staff, so more to come on that, but we're hopeful to really engage our economic development team in this work in the future. So you're going to see some new faces join as we build out that work. More on that later, because I know we're going to talk about disparity study and a lot of work that the city is initiating right now. So thanks, Tim.
Excellent. Well, welcome everyone. We'll go ahead and kick off with our agenda, which was published earlier in the week. So our first item is approval of the minutes from the October 6th meeting. Hopefully everyone's had a chance to review those. At this point, would request a motion to approve. Don't be shy.
Carl, I so move.
I second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please raise your hand virtually or otherwise. All right, any opposed? Seeing none, minutes pass. I did not note, but we do have a quorum for today, which is necessary to do any voting, but we have it, so we're good to go. So moving through the agenda, our next item is a discussion on the new lender criteria work group. Normally Carl provides updates here, but I'm going to chip in on this one. In our last meeting, we had some really good discussion led by Carl and John and others for potential changes to some of our guidelines. And so we took some actions to do some additional homework on a few of those items. And one of those items was related to a threshold for startups. And so we did a little homework on that and discovered that our threshold for startups is at 33%. And that's documented in our underwriting guidelines. There was an initial threshold for the first 12 months of the operating or the Mountain Community Capital Fund, but we've obviously passed way beyond that 12-month threshold. So we're currently at a 33% threshold. The recommendation coming from Carl and team was to increase a lower threshold to a higher bit, but I think everyone feels comfortable, as I understand it, with the 33% threshold. The way that we will monitor that long term is through the work of Yaslin and her team to update that balance on a recurring basis. As a note in the underwriting guidelines, as written, after 1 year of successful payments, loans will be released from their startup designation. So those startups roll off over time, and Yaslin will update that as we go. So that's where we are on the startup topic. If there's any questions or comments, I'm glad to discuss that as a group today. If you're interested in what I was reading from, it's the document 3 in the meeting materials folder titled Underwriting Guidelines. And that specific section is page 2. Time in business. So, any questions or comments?
Tim, I guess my only comment essentially is that if we get other lenders, is Yaslin still responsible for rolling up all the lenders, or just Mountain BizWorks because she's the only one that's lent any money at this point? Or is that I know that's a problem for down the road, but is that the intention?
It's a great question. Yaslin, would you like me to take it, or do you want to? So when the fund began, Mountain BizWorks offered to be sort of the holder of the data. And so Yaslin, you can speak about that and how that's worked to date. So
Yeah, so it hasn't been an issue yet since we have been the only lender using the fund to this day. But however, we are obviously talking about bringing other lenders in. And then I've also had a few conversations with Lydia about how to use the fund further. But we will, Mountain BizWorks will be the only reporting lender. So we will still be handling all reporting there. How is that gonna work? We're not sure.
Thank you, Yaslin. And hopefully, I'm sure we can work through that. I do think there is benefit in, centralized reporting, so that we can see kind of the status, and hopefully we can continue in that way. Karen, I saw you come off of.
Yeah, I was just going to mention, I don't know that I'm needed to help with this, but I know this was based off a little bit of the Charlotte Community Capital Fund. We played that reporting role. There were other lenders involved in that. And it was just a matter of getting the right templates and so that everyone was submitting information the same way. And so anyway, if it comes to that later and you'd like some help, yes, I'll be happy to share.
Thank you, Karen. Sounds great.
Teamwork makes the dream work. All right, go ahead, Carl.
Could I get a copy of that template just to, because we're getting ready to share with the potential new lenders, sort of our path, and that would be a great document to include.
It may have required different information because of different reporting for that program than this. So if you're talking about the one that we had used, or if you're talking about a new one to be created, that would be different.
I guess I'd like to see the existing one.
I don't believe we have an existing one.
Oh, I thought you just said that.
No, when we were no. When we for the Charlotte program that this program's modeled after, Self-Help played that reporting role. We had templates for that program. Okay. Right now, there's nothing for this current program for the Mountain Community Capital because Mountain BizWorks has been the only lender. So I was offering to share those with Yaslin.
And I will say in the beginning when we did have the conversation and, we were, the fund was starting, we put in place a Google sheet that all the lenders had access to, where they would go and add in any loans that they did and or were working on that were coming down the pipeline. So that's, something that we could continue to do as well.
Yeah, that'd be great. Maybe you could share that with me. Thank you.
D. Williams?
I was just looking at when we said the template, we're getting these once quarterly, these reports, is that right?
That's right.
Okay, when in the new template, can some of the, I guess the hybrid information like NAICS code and all of that, I guess it will be incorporated, correct? Is that right? Or is it going to be a whole nother document altogether that excludes that and there's going to be on a separate document, standard industrial classification code, race, startup, that kind of thing? Or how is that? Or has there been enough time to discuss how that's going to be done?
Yeah, Dee, and Yaslin jump in obviously, but the quarterly report does not have the NAICS codes, but does do percentages of demographics. It's kind of the summary level data.
Yeah.
The individual loan guarantee template does include that information. But Yaslin, jump in.
Yeah, sorry, we were talking about a template for the other lender to communicate with Mountain BizWorks so that we can track the loans that they are working on. So that's the template that we're talking about, not a template that's going to come to the committee.
Because we've had no other lenders participating, correct? This is just okay. Got it.
All right. As always, appreciate the discussion and the questions. If no additional questions, we'll keep moving through the agenda. Our next item refers to a vote on a recommended change to the fund. And that recommended change that was discussed last time was the maximum loan guarantee amount. That change would need to occur in our underwriting guidelines. And so we sent out a copy of the underwriting guidelines in advance of the meeting. As I look at the document posted, I'm not sure if y'all can see my tracked changes. on that. And so if you can't, I apologize. And so what I'd like to do is share my screen. That way y'all can see the track changes, just so you are fully understanding kind of the changes that have been proposed. If someone can see my track changes, please tell me, and then it might have gotten lost in the PDF, but that's okay, because we're going to share screens. So I'm going to pull up the underwriting guidelines. Again, apologize for that little hiccup. And in the underwriting guidelines, there were just a couple minor changes made. Can y'all see my screen? I'm zooming in, so it's a little bit bigger. Everybody good? All right, so I'm going to walk through the changes, sort of change by change. The first change is just taking out the names of the specific CDFIs from the underwriting guidelines. And so instead of referring to self-help, Mountain BizWorks, et cetera, by name, we just refer to them as the participating lenders. This allows us to add additional lenders over time and not have to constantly update this document. So fairly minor. Our next change goes into the loan approval bucket. And this is kind of a long-standing change that we've never really updated our documents, but how we've been behaving. When originally constructed, there was a credit underwriting committee that was recommended based on the Charlotte model. Through some discussions amongst our legal teams, we determined that there wasn't necessarily a need for that additional committee. And instead, our operating committee essentially behaves as our credit underwriting committee. And so what I've done here is I've struck credit underwriting and just replaced it with operating committee. This is a change we've made in other documents, but hadn't made here. So catching up on that front. And then the primary change, which sort of generated all of this, is to the maximum amount of guarantee per loan, and moving that from 70 to 100K, which is based on the recommendation of our subcommittee that's been constructed by Carl, John, and others. So those I'm going to scan through just to show that there's no additional track changes. There are none. Those are the primary changes in the document. I'm glad to leave this up on the screen so y'all can have an opportunity to read it. Let's discuss, see if there's any questions or concerns. If there's none, I'd request a motion to vote. So go ahead, Dee.
Thank you, Tim. The questions that I have go to the terms of the loans. I guess, and it goes with the mission of this loan pool. It looks like some of these loans, most loan pools that I participated in that were waived credit guarantees were set up to usher clients into the mainstream banking market. And so I guess for somebody like me, the question comes up as to the terms of these loans, which are pretty long. And then there's a mentioning of real estate, up to 15 years and 20 years if considered. So I guess that is the only thing that I just want to express my concern about. When we initially started this, and I guess the actual feet on the ground seems to think that most of these clients that we have, especially in this area, if they're minority businesses, will never graduate, or it is going to be increasingly hard for them to graduate into a mainstream banking situation, especially with the terms that we've got. Most working capital loans are what they are. They're just working capital. But I see what you're trying to do here, and that's fine because it's here in writing. But I do want to just express my concerns that it looks like we're going to probably keep the same pool of people and probably have businesses that are going to participate in this loan pool for quite a long time, given, I guess, local conditions. And I hate to see that because most of the ones that I participated in that were loan pools, and there have been some prior to this one, are set up to usher these people into mainstream banking markets. That's all that I would say. And that's the only concern that I have too. And it's from probably from a fiscally conservative standpoint, the risk of value that's in it, and then the refinance issues that come up when you keep circulating these people over and over in the same system. That's all that I would have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Dee. Carl, I see your hand is raised.
Yes, thank you. And Dee, I really have been thinking a lot about, this issue that you've brought up about the length of loan and trying to wrap my head around, a 10-year operating loan. But I've also come back to the idea that, we're funding people who may never get into mainstream banking, may never be able to pursue conventional finance. And I guess that's, that is our mission, but I also think it's the value that we bring to it. I also think that if we would generate a stronger loan pool, that we could then make decisions around the condition of the loan. It's pretty hard now with, just one lender. We approve them. And so if we had more deals doing, I think we would be in a better position to ask those questions. So thank you.
Oh, great discussion. And I think what I hear in Carl and Dee is talking about the future and how do we continue to mature the fund and those that participate in the fund. And I think that's an exciting discussion that we need to continue to have. Other comments, questions on the document? Again, apologize if you were not able to see the track changes. We'll figure that out for next time. If there's no questions or comments, would welcome a motion to approve the underwriting guidelines.
Tell my motion to approve the underwriting guidelines.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please raise your hand virtually or otherwise. Please lower your hands. Are there any opposed? Seeing none, motion passes. Underwriting guidelines will be adopted. In terms of next steps for how this will become official, we've got basically what is a recommendation from this operating committee that we'll take forward to our respective boards at City Council and County Commission. And what we'll provide is a package, which includes our services and allocation duties agreement, which is the official document that is signed by our leadership. And we'll at that time also take the underwriting guidelines, which don't need official approval, but that sort of feed in to that services and duties agreement. So that'll be the next action. I'll work with Nikki and Frank to figure out, the timing of getting that on an agenda. But that'll be some type of official action that we'll need to take. So as a reminder, the services and duties agreement, we've got some initial changes that are sort of under review at the city staff level, city legal staff level. Very minor changes in that document that refer to participating lenders, credit underwriting committee, things like that. So those are next steps. Carl, I see your hand is raised.
So once those materials are brought to your respective boards, is that the final step in updating all of our documents? Will that sort of bring that to fruition here?
That'll bring it to closure until some other changes are needed, and hopefully none for the foreseeable. Go ahead, Karen.
So we and the other lenders are signers of that duties and participation agreement. So I'm assuming that when you say it's final, we have to have the ability to review that document as well.
Yep, I think that is fair and true. And we can circulate that document as soon as it's ready. I think all the lenders will find the changes to be pretty modest. So,
I encourage us to try to get that on the board's agenda as soon as possible. That really is the next step for us going forward.
Yep. No, I appreciate that, Carl. And Frank, Nikki, I'd open it up to y'all to share any updates that you have on your side related to that. If there's anything we could do or anything we need to do, please let us know. Go ahead, Frank.
Tim, I just want to let you know, I've met with Janice twice. Our assistant city attorney and legal. She does have some questions related to some of the changes proposed and also how the Dogwood funding from self-help fits into this. I think Kim Marmon Sachs is pulling together a meeting with county staff next week. I'm not sure if Janice is going to be a part of that or not, but Janice has some updates or some questions that she wants to revisit with county legal.
Great. Well, I would love to participate in that and help us kind of move this to closure. So let me know what I need to do, Frank. Are y'all originating an invite?
I think Kim Marmon Sachs is on our end, but I'll double check that.
Cool. Just let me know. I'm glad to get Michael Frew, our attorney, available for that as well. So. Very good. Thanks to everyone for the level of effort you've put into sort of analyzing potential changes to the fund, and glad to see this recommendation moving forward. So. All right. If no other comments on this, I'm going to continue moving through the agenda. I can find my agenda. So next up, we have an update on MCCF fund status, and that'll be provided by Karen. This comes out of a question about sort of where the funds sit. Before Karen jumps in, I did want to let y'all know that I've invited Mountain BizWorks to attend our next meeting in December. And so we'll have Matt Raker with us, who I think will be able to talk through some of the additional details that Karen won't be able to speak to necessarily today about where the funds sit and kind of the process for using those additional ARPA dollars, which are different than the original fund sources that we started with. So that's coming in December. I separated the discussions just because I thought it would be, we would need more time. So Karen, you're up.
Yeah, so right now, the current balance, and these are the funds that self-help holds, these are not the ARPA funds, is $918,190.37. There have been no losses yet to date from the funds, so no guarantees paid out. So this money includes the $200,000, which is a loan from Buncombe County, $250,000, again, a loan from City of Asheville, and then the grant from Dogwood Health Trust of $450,000, and then the remaining $18,190.37 is the 1% guarantee fee that is collected per loan by the lender. That fee gets allocated back to the pot to help replenish it for future guarantees to help replenish after the losses. I will say there will be more money coming into this separate from that because sort of, I think as Tim sort of alluded to, as Mountain BizWorks makes loans with the ARPA funds, they are then going to take 85% of that loan amount and put that into this pot. And we are still working out those details with Mountain BizWorks. And so those funds are being accounted for and will move into this pot probably within the next month or so.
Hello,
Muted,
Sam.
Tim.
Yeah. Can you, who's,
I'm sorry, I was muted. D, you're up.
okay. I was just thinking, what source, the ARPA funds comes through, what, city, county government, or what? How do they arrive?
Yep, I'm glad to take that one, D. Yep, so the city and the county separately utilized ARPA dollars to provide to the MCCF. The hitch, which we'll talk about it in more detail next time we meet, is that the nature of federal rules for those dollars is an expenditure needed to occur prior to 2026, December 2026. Those are just standard ARPA rules.
Okay.
Because of the nature of a loan guarantee, there may never be an expenditure, because if you don't default, then there's no need to further guarantee and pay out on the loan. So we had to do a workaround, which Karen described, but that's kind of the gist of it. Go ahead, Dee.
Okay, one other question. There's been no loan losses. I do remember when we had one that appeared to be a clothing company that was in default a year or so ago. Was that categorized as a loan loss, or was that refinance? What happened to that?
Great question. Thank you for paying attention to that. Yaslin, I'm going to tag you back in to provide an update on the status. There has been no request to be made whole by the lender on that 1D, but Yaslin can provide the update.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have not we have charged it off. However, have been working with on figuring out a collection method with that one, which obviously takes a lot of time. And so we've not yet had a claim done on MCCF for those specific loan yet.
Okay, that is in the report that we get, the status of that pending. Okay, so it's not a loan loss categorized yet, but there is a default. Is that correct?
Yes, it's categorized as it's categorized as a charge off on the quarterly report.
Okay, I guess I'm just somebody who's very definitive. We don't have a loan loss, but we have a charge off. Is that right? It's not one that we're going to, you're not going to come to us for guarantee funds. Is that right?
We will.
Okay. Is there some way, I believe in truth in reporting. Is there some way that can be put in? Because it looks like we don't have any losses, but then we have this situation, and then I don't know. I mean, okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Dee, and thank you for calling it out, because that loan has been in the default status for a good while, and we've had some discussions. Yaslin, forgive me, I forget your risk.
Kelly?
Yep. The risk manager for BizWorks is sort of shared kind of like the actions that were taken, and but we can always bring, say one more time the name, I'm sorry.
Kelly.
Kelly. We can always invite Kelly Foster back if helpful. Yep.
Tim, can I ask a question based off the email that you sent out?
Absolutely.
That Karen sent out and forwarded out, because I didn't quite understand. So about earning interest on the money. So is the loan to the county and the city from self-help? Is that why they can't pay interest?
No. It's reverse. These are loans from the city and the county to self-help for the use of this program. So we are the recipient of the loan. It's a 0% interest loan to self-help.
Okay. So what about the 450 from Dogwood?
That is a grant that is for this program. And that was a grant. So this was, I think it was Jeff at the time who was the chair of this committee. Anyway, there was a group that was working with Dogwood Trust to try to get more funds in to be used for Mountain Community Capital. And at the time, and I won't go into detail, but basically I think Mountain BizWorks was working with them too, for reasons that had to do with other relationships that were in the works between Mountain BizWorks and Dogwood Trust that had nothing to do with Mountain Community Capital. The decision was made that there needs to be a nonprofit entity to be the recipient of that grant. And so they decided that it should come to self-help as that nonprofit recipient for the grant. So we are the grantee. It is for the purposes of Mountain Community Capital, so it's in this fund. but those are grant dollars for the fund.
And so those dollars can't earn interest either.
Well, typically we don't pay interest on grants that we receive that are to be used for specific purposes. These grants sit in our account. So there are a couple things. One, we're not charging any administrative fees for this, and that's part of it. That's part of that sort of accounting. And so, but there's definitely work that we do. I mean, this week we got two checks from, Mountain Community Capital, every 1% fee, every loan that's made. And then also, so a grant is made to us if we're then paying interest on that deposit. And I should have brought in someone from our fundraising team who would be able to describe this better than me, but then we're essentially paying, like self-help's contributing essentially then to Mountain Community Capital Fund. We're making that, we're making additional payments into that. Again, I can bring someone in from DPI to a future meeting from our teams to be able to better explain this than I can. But generally, we don't pay interest on loans and grants that we receive for credit enhancement to be used in other programs.
Well, I mean, I feel like we should just press a little harder just because interest rates are so high at this point, and I don't want to be facetious or anything, but obviously they're going to be more than offset. Whatever administrative charges you want to charge the fund is going to be more than offset by the interest rate right now. So, and so I'm just a little lost. Maybe this is self-help regulation or whatever. So I just feel like we're just leaving money sitting there and we're not earning any money now. On the flip side, we're not lending any money either. So it's not, it's not like we're scrounging around for dollars here, but, we're missing an opportunity to accumulate the pot that we can essentially lend out down the road. So I feel like we should take advantage of whatever we can, and
yeah,
you're earning some interest on the $500,000 basically.
Yeah, I would say the other thing too is that we can't use these dollars for anything else. So normally when someone makes a deposit, we're using those dollars to lend out, and so we're making money on that deposit, on those funds. We can't use these funds to do that. They just have to sit in the account for this purpose. So we don't have the opportunity to use these funds for another purpose to earn income on them, which is normally what happens too.
Yeah. Feel like we're all sitting around with a pot of money and we can't do anything with it, which seems kind of ridiculous.
Well, but isn't that the point though? I mean, it's a guarantee. It's a trustee role, right? And not necessarily a typical lending role. It's a trustee of funds that are used for collateral. So
yeah, but we can put it in a non-risk-free vehicle and earn some interest on it. We're not, not proposing to put it in a risk vehicle to, earn more interest on it or more rate of return on it. We're just talking about putting in something that's, rock solid. But right now, it can get 4 or 4.5%, 5% on.
D. Williams, I see your hand's been raised.
Yes, thank you. And I agree with John. My concern too was also with the 1% fee. I know it went back into the kitty for guarantee purposes, but if you're going to assist people, there's nothing wrong with making money to help people. And I don't believe in letting funds lie fallow. If there's a situation that we can come up with to be able to earn that interest for those funds rather than just let them sit fallow, I'd be interested in that. I think one of the roles of an operating committee is also to be smart and fiscally aware. We're supposed to be more fiscally aware and financially aware than most folk. Government does have its role, but this is a business operation. So I would, and I know that we're not here to be financial advisors to the loan pool, but we sort of are. And I would think if that money could benefit folks in the community, that might be a worthwhile look at if we could put it into a vehicle to earn interest, and also with that 1% fee as well. That's just my input. Thank you.
Go ahead, Nikki.
And well, perhaps we could look at, again, if there are more, I'm thinking again of Charlotte, if they, understanding that their program may be further along the line, it could be a good time to check in with them to understand if there are any lessons learned around this topic that could inform any options to that inquiry, you know? So I perhaps that's a possibility, is just to really see if there are programs that are more, you know, further along in this process, like if they have made that choice or if they have explored it, any lessons learned that we could glean from that. Is Charlotte the other model that we've often looked towards with respect to this kind of fund?
So the original, many of the documents that we've been reviewing are based on the Charlotte documents. We have had an opportunity to touch base with Charlotte recently. The leadership actually for that fund is now in Guilford, and they're starting a new fund, and advised us on all the things that they were going to do differently than the Charlotte fund, which is now defunct. So that was what was interesting that I learned from the Charlotte fund is that they really didn't do many loans. When we shared kind of the numbers that we were sort of producing, they were sort of surprised by it. So I don't know.
Yeah, they did a lot of loans actually early on, and then it started when the Great Recession hit. That's really when it started changing, and then the city and others decided for various reasons that there were other ways they wanted to be able to help businesses, and so the fund began wrapping up.
Thanks for that. If anyone would like to do some additional groundwork with the Charlotte folks or Karen, I think that's a great suggestion. And so we'll leave it to this group to volunteer for that role. So let us know if that's of interest to do that additional research.
I'm happy to reach out and talk to Charlotte folks about what they did with the pool of money. I'm happy to do that. If you can send me a contact information.
That's great. And Karen, would you be the best way for us to track that down at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, like you said, the leadership there has changed so much that no one who's still there will be able to help you. You should just talk to us, because we were the holders of those funds from all of the various different players. So I can give you contacts in Charlotte who we're now working with, but at this point, all of them have been there just in the past few years, figuring out how to wrap this up. Working on that.
Well, I guess I'll reach out to you, Karen, and set up some time to talk.
That's great. And Dee, I see your hands raised.
I was just going to interject that it might be if they've gone on to Greensboro, or even, I don't know if Durham has one with the Institute of Minority Business Development or anything like that. But that might be another source as well to reach out to. Because most people aren't going to let this kind of money lie fallow without earning interest. They just simply won't. Thanks.
Thank you, Dee. I think what I'd like to do is for our agenda next month, I'd like to keep this particular item on the agenda so that we can understand kind of the latest based on the conversation that Karen and John have. And if there's anyone else that would like to chip in on that conversation, I'd be willing to sit in as well. That way we can provide an update to this group and see if there's any new thinking or not. It's not uncommon, and this is a different relationship with the loan and the nature of that and the grant. Not uncommon for local governments to invest funds. We invest our funds in very low risk interest-bearing accounts here at the county, as an example. So, and we invest in a loan pool or an investment pool rather that has many other municipalities and local governments in it across the state. So Not uncommon, but this is nuanced. So, all right. Any other thoughts on this? That'll be on the agenda for next month, December 1st. All right. If no comments there, we're going to move into new business. This month we have no new loans that I'm aware of, Yaslin. We didn't share anything in advance because we didn't have anything to share. But we'll look forward to December and hopefully some new loans for review then. Shifting into our next item, we've got about 15 minutes left in today's meeting. We've got two items that we wanted to talk through. First is the City of Asheville's disparity study with an update from Nikki Reed. And then if we have time, I'd like to get to Lydia and the contractor development program that she's been observing. So Nikki.
Great, thank you. So October 24th, Tuesday night, last week, the city approved and accepted the results of the latest disparity study. And so that was a year-long effort that Frank led in partnership with our consultants, Miller 3. In effect, what a disparity study does is it provides a legal basis for cities to enact race and gender conscious procurement policies. And so the foundation of the disparity study is really to legally enable cities to develop race and gender conscious measures within its procurement policy. But really, the disparity study also provides a robust analysis of our contracting and purchasing procedures, and then also the relevant market area with which the city procures its services and its products, and then really scans the local vendor community. It scans our local partnership community in terms of managerial, finance, technical assistance service providers, which really is what I think this group often represents. And so in effect, what I hope that we've been able to generate is somewhat of a strategic plan for our business inclusion office. And so as you can imagine, a lot of the disparity study is internally focused within City Hall operations, meaning, how do we do proper reporting? How can we work on forecasting of our contracting needs, our purchasing needs, et cetera, to be able to share that with vendors to prep for bid opportunities that come down the pipeline. So I'll say that a lot of the disparity study work really looked internally at the city, and we're kind of organizing now with an internal cohort to unpack those recommendations, to see what's low-hanging fruit for us internally, and to hopefully improve that in terms of being able to advance the mission of inclusive procurement. Then, of course, another piece of this work is to collaborate with external partners. And that's where I really see MCCF playing a role, and then you and your other capacities playing a role in partnering with the city. So one of the key findings that came out of the disparity study as it relates to this team is this low awareness, lack of trust in the city's procurement process, but low awareness of our other external partners and how we align ourselves in this work. So for example, like how do we be able to promote MCCF as a tool for businesses to position themselves to get the capital needed to participate in city contracts, really starting to make those connections explicitly. And as opportunities present themselves within the city, then kind of making that robust connection for our local MWBE vendor community. So it's a 500-page report, a lot to unpack. We really just received it in October, so we're going to be working through that. As you spoke with Aaron earlier, he and Rachel Taylor are going to be on point with unpacking that information, and then starting to work through relationship building in our community for how we advance this work. So really, I think I'm excited, and Frank, maybe you can talk a little bit about the upcoming event on November 8th. That's next Wednesday, because I know that MCCF is part of that discussion, but really focused on the access to capital. So all I can say is we are now charged at the City of Asheville with looking through those results of the disparity study and then developing that implementation plan. There's a lot of recommendations for how to advance this work. And so we've got to be skillful in understanding where we are as an organization, where we are as a community of service providers, and then what we can tackle immediately to start to see impact within the bevy of recommendations that are there. So that's our next step, is to really come back to a city council committee, our equity and engagement committee, to unpack that implementation plan with them. And as it involves our local service providers, our local technical assistance providers, lenders, et cetera, that's where I can start to see that overlap with MCCF. So it's a major initiative for our team, and I'm so happy to be able to share that with this group, and perhaps we can just think through on how we can report out in future meetings, specifically as it relates to advancing opportunities for accessing capital. So I'll pause and let Frank just say 2 words about the upcoming event, and then we can open the floor for questions.
So I will Nikki made mention of an event next week. As you know, the City of Asheville is responsible for promoting the Mountain Community Capital Fund. And additionally, I will say that one of the themes that came out of the disparity study was that access to capital is a challenge for small minority and women-owned businesses. And we are doing a outreach event for small minority and women-owned businesses next Wednesday at 8 River Arts Place, down in the River Arts District. And the overarching theme is access to capital, but we're leading with Mountain Community Capital Fund. So I'll be there. Tim's going to be there, and we've got representatives from Mountain BizWorks, Carolina Small Business, and Self-Help. And all those folks have been on this call this morning, giving them an opportunity to talk about not just MCCF, but other lending vehicles and access to capital that they have available through their organizations. We're also going to have a representative from Buncombe County, Ron Venturella, who is going to share a new vendor tool that he wanted to promote for those in attendance. And Aaron Harris is working the phones to see who we can get from our various vendor lists to attend next week. We've been promoting this in social media. We're doing an interview at noon. And I've shared this with others. Dee, if you haven't seen my email, I hope you did. I'll resend it. I sent it a couple of days ago with information about this. So if you can work those networks that you have, that would be fantastic. And just as a side note, I ran into both Maui Vang and Jeff Kaplan yesterday at lunch and forwarded the information to them as well. So they're helping to push the information out. So hoping to get good attendance next week. That's Wednesday, November the 8th, 8 River Arts Place. Doors are at 5:30. The show starts at 6 and we'll be done by 7.
Go ahead, Dee.
Thank you. So a couple of questions. Number one is about the relevant market area. I know from the previous disparity study, and I intend to read this one in its entirety, Charlotte was also included. And simply because I guess, especially like for professional services, they do have engineers and so forth of color. And it looks like the city capitalized on some of that. It was good, but it was a little concerning that we haven't developed our immediate market area more. So I'm wondering, as I go through this disparity study, if it's going to show the same things. There was also very low dollar thresholds and from the last disparity study, especially for African-American owned firms. So I'm going to be looking for those as well. Some of the other vendors look like they overperform compared to their presence in the population. And that we'll be looking for that as well. And also just wanted to say, the technical assistance providers, a lot of us who do this work are overlooked, especially if you're Black like me. We've got some very stellar track records and some $1 million babies that we've pushed when we had opportunity. And so we don't get, it's generally the mainstream ones like Mountain Biz Cap, Mountain Biz Works, Self-Help, the technical assistance providers that have been funded traditionally. But folks like, the new ones that I've helped put together and other folk, we're nowhere to be found in that. And so we can't promote as well as we normally would. The other thing is that a lot of the programs that have been run internally by the city, especially if they were contracted development and other programs, I don't know how you run that program effectively and produce tangible results when the city and county a lot of times are the customer base. How do you do that without violating the conflict of interest that's so essential to procurement and contracting policy? And also, I'm looking at the data from a lot of the, mainstream organizations, and it doesn't look like they've been very successful with particularly African-American firms, even providing technical assistance. We had this question last night. One of the recommendations that came back to the Reparations Commission, and it was gleaned from city and county staff, was that we should funnel the dollars from reparations back to AB Tech and other people who had business incubators when we know that they can't or they don't service the Black community. But at any rate, we don't want more dollars invested into things that's a whole nother conversation that we intend to have with council and city staff. The last thing is I'm right back to collaborative partners. We're excluded. Most of us who provide these services who are of color, who look like me, are historically excluded. It doesn't matter what kind of expertise we have, but we just want to bring that up. And I think that is hindering a lot of the development, particularly in the Black community. So that's all that I would say, but thank you anyway. I participated because I have been a city contractor as far as highway work and so forth over the years. I have been a consultant to the city a long time ago in putting together the first loan pool and some other things and the minority business plan for Asheville City and Buncombe County. So, but here lately, we are excluded, and I just wanted to make mention of that. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Dee. Thank you, Nikki. I'm sure we'll hear more about this as we move forward, but would like to be good with our time. We've got about 2 minutes. I'd like to get to Lydia and then get to public comment before we wrap up. So Lydia, can you share just briefly what you learned on the contractor development program? And we can always come back at a later date to talk to.
Sure, absolutely, yeah. Just very briefly, the overview of the City of Charlotte has started a contractor development program. They did a kickoff late summer, August, about that time. It consists of workshop sessions. It's specifically aimed at minority-owned, women-owned contractor businesses. So they're doing about 10, I will call them workshops, with varying different topics. Some are in person, some are virtual. They've tried to do a good job of making it not so cumbersome for the contractors to be able to attend. The things that they're concentrating on mainly are marketing assistance, estimating and bidding, financial statement review, project management for the contractors. They're going into QuickBooks and other business applications, safety and practices reviews, and then solutions for bonding. So they have partnered with a bonding company to assist with bonding, as that's a large hurdle sometimes for some of the small contractors to overcome. And then they've also partnered with us to be able to supply some of that capital on the back end if needed. And that's kind of the real high overview of it.
I appreciate that. I'm sure as that evolves, it'd be great to hear more about it. And so maybe we can find a way to talk to those folks or invite them to this meeting at some point. So
absolutely.
Very good. We are at time, so I'd like to go ahead and move to wrap this meeting up. Thana, do we have any members of the public with us today?
No, there's no public comment in the queue.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, everyone, I appreciate your time today. Glad we were able to move some items forward. We'll be back together, I believe, December 1st. We'll publish the meeting materials as always in advance. Hope everyone has a great weekend.